so we can open the
Okay.
meeting.
Done.
Ah, beautiful. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I see a lot of friends connected for today's webinar. Just here to welcome you, to buy some time, to give people the possibility to connect. I'm currently in Sheffield in England, where Alfred Marshall theorized the industrial atmosphere in 1890. So it's nice to be connected also physically with this discussion about the ecosystem. Today we have decided to have this meeting to see the faces of everyone, but please stay on mute. The video, the meeting is recorded, so you should be informed about that. And at the end of the first 30 minutes, there will be the possibility for you to funnel your questions through my colleague Maria Sobron for Fernando. So I think I said everything, and I can give Raffaele Trapasso from the OECD. I can give the floor to Giulia Emone-Marsan from the Economic Research Institute of ASEAN and East Asia. Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Raffaele, and welcome everybody. It's fantastic to connect with many of you through this virtual channel. I'm Giulia, as Raffaele mentioned, and I'm based in Asia. And with Raffaele, we have been starting collaborating throughout this fantastic initiative from the OECD, which is ECOLE, throughout many different activities. And this is indeed the first short and quick, but very, very interesting webinar on the way to our roundtable, ECOLE roundtable, that is going to take place at the end of November in Canada. And we are very lucky to have with us today Fernando Gómez-Baquero, who's based in New York. And some of us had actually the chance to meet Fernando in person and hear from the fantastic story and the fantastic case of Cornell Tech based in New York. We are going to go deeper and learn more about this very interesting example. It's actually an example that me and Raffaele know since a long time, because we had the chance to work colleague of Fernando that at the time was establishing some of the programs Fernando is going to describe. And indeed, if you're curious to learn more, feel free to check a report that when I was working for the OECD, Raffaele and I did together on Croatia. Maybe at some point we can share the link of this report, because even if it is on Croatia and Slavica is here with us, there will be some boxes describing the predecessors of what Fernando is going to discuss with us today. Again, Fernando is the director of Spinout and Project Runway, and we are going to discuss these initiatives with him. I think we can start with Fernando about an introduction about the New York ecosystem, what he's doing at Cornell, but also the very important role that both the university, but also what Fernando is doing, the role that it's playing in the city ecosystem, in the urban landscape. Over to you, Fernando.
Thank you so much, Julia and Rafael and everybody for this invitation. I see some familiar faces here, even someone that can keep me very honest because he was with us since the beginning. So Uzi, great to see you here too. So hi, everybody. I'm Fernando. I'm the director of Runway and Spinouts. And what I want to tell you today is about a really interesting story of what Cornell Tech and our collaboration with the Technion, which is called the Jacobs Technion Cornell Institute, did for the city of New York. 10 years ago, New York City was not seen as the most entrepreneurial ecosystem in the world. It wasn't a bad entrepreneurial ecosystem. It was very focused on building companies that were related to fintech and to construction technologies, but it wasn't seen as such of a Silicon Valley type of ecosystem. And 11 years ago, Cornell University decided to come to the city and bid for a proposal. And maybe the most interesting part is that the Cornell Tech campus is built as an economic development project. So from the beginning, The idea was not for a university to come and only give instruction. It was for a university to combine all of the sets of resources, connections, things that it needed to be the driver of economic growth. And of course, for a university to be the driver of economic growth, doesn't only need to hire people. Of course, hiring people is an important part of it. You make investment, but then create startups that are the ones that are going to create the longer lasting impact. So about 11 years ago, there was a competition in New York City. Michael Bloomberg was mayor. And in that competition, the idea was, let's bring a university that is great on research, has very strong research background, and at the same time can paint the vision of building an economic development project that combines research, startup creation, entrepreneurship, incubation, all the way to build up the ecosystem. Cornell University was one of 19 proponents, and there were two reasons why Cornell University ended up winning this bid. The first one is the scope of what we propose, which you see behind me. At this point in time, we have invested $1 billion on this campus. We built 5 buildings, and we now plan to invest an additional $2 billion for an overall investment of $3 billion. The city gave us $100 million and the use of this land. We do pay rent. We pay $1 rent a year, but we got some money from the city, but the rest of the $2.9 billion will come from philanthropic efforts from Cornell University and the Technion partners. So the first reason why we won was the scope of what we wanted to do here, which is at the end, when everything is said and done, we hope to have at least 3,000 students, at least 200 faculty members, and we will be creating 500 companies from scratch every year. That's the goal. The second reason why this was a good project and it ended up winning the proposal was our collaboration with the Technion. 10 years ago, again, Cornell was not seen as the most entrepreneurial university. New York was not the most entrepreneurial ecosystem, but Startup Nation was. And there was an effort to reach out across the ocean to someone that really understood that startup creation could build a city and could build a nation. And thanks to our collaboration with the Technion, it was that we created the Jacobs Technion Cornell Institute, which became the experimental ground to understand how to do entrepreneurship in our own way, because we didn't want to do it the same way as Silicon Valley. It doesn't make sense for New York to do it the same way. Through the Jacobs Institute, we've tried many different experiments, some of them pretty unsuccessful, which is normal, and then some of them pretty successful, like the Runway program, which today has built from scratch 104 companies that are worth over $1 billion from this campus alone, from our own ecosystem. So really it's the combination of those two. That's what we're building here, is the combination of a university that has instruction and research, mostly in engineering and digital sciences. So computer science, electrical engineering, operations research. We also have MBA, Masters in Law, and we bring some designers from Parsons. Then we take all of that population and we give them a studio program, which is basically a year-long hackathon, put them to build, and then continue by making real investments within the university, where Cornell University and this partnership called the Jacobs Institute holds equity and is an active investor and participant in the companies that are being built here. So it's from cradle to launch, all the way from bringing people that are very smart or want to study a little bit more to launching them into this ecosystem with these early stage startups and some funding so they can continue to grow. I think I'll stop there and I'll leave it for some some other questions.
Thank you, Fernando. It's fascinating to listen to the cooperation between Cornell and the New York ecosystem. And I would be interested in learning more, if you could give a bit more details about the Runway program itself, the way in which it functions, in which delivers entrepreneurship education to scientists, in fact. Thank you very much.
Yes. So the Runway program, as I said, started as an experiment, and the founder of it is right here, Uzi Dehan, because you see it here. So The experiment came from Uzi, who made a very interesting observation, is over 70% of PhDs, people that are just about to graduate from their PhDs, are involved in technology transfer processes at universities. So they're very active actors in that process of technology and innovation creation, build-up creation. But they have a dilemma when they leave the university, once they graduate from their PhD. The dilemma is, first off, not all of them want to be academics. And as a matter of fact, there might not be enough academic jobs for the amount of PhDs that are graduating all over the world. So if they don't want to be an academic, or they don't have an academic possibility, and they want to go to industry or be entrepreneurs, they don't have the knowledge. They don't know how to do it. And they're often painted as the CTOs. So you're the CTO and you should bring someone that knows business. And even though that is true, that is not their fault. It's our fault, because we didn't train them the right way. We didn't give them, through all of those years, the resources and the training that they needed. So with that being said, the idea was quite simple, but quite brilliant. And it was to build a postdoctoral program, as we know in universities. And within that postdoctoral program, they wouldn't be working, this postdoc would not be working for a professor. They would be working for themselves, building a company, doing the research and publication that they needed to make that company successful. So it was a way of still bringing people within that academic environment and giving them a figure that we all know quite well, which is a postdoctoral appointment, but focusing that postdoctoral appointment into the creation of new enterprises and the training that they need for that enterprise. So it's not just leaving them alone. That requires some training. So the Runway program is that postdoctoral appointment, is based on the pillars of us wanting to help scholars that are very early. So at least, before if they just graduated, that's the best. But maybe having graduated a couple of years ago, we're focusing on people that have experiences on computation or digital sciences, computer science, electrical engineering. Why digital? Because it's a little bit faster, it's a little bit easier, and we know that there's a good ecosystem for that here in New York. We bring people from all over the world. That's another great thing that universities in the US have. We can actually hire people, and people that just graduated from anywhere in the world. And we often bring people from Israel. We brought people from the Netherlands, UK, and many other countries. We like people that are academically very, very strong. That's very important. And then the last one is, we want them for at least 2 years, those 2 years that they're with us in this program, to be building a company full-time, not really working under anyone else, not really working for a company, working so that they can build what they need to build. So those are the pillars of it. And what the program offers is training, mentoring, the muscle of building entrepreneurship, a community of people that are like-minded, what I call a tribe of people around them that really helps them understand what is entrepreneurship and just answer questions very fast. And through that training, which has a specific set of curriculum, that mentoring, which is a group of VCs, industry mentors, academic mentors, people in our ecosystem and in the Israeli ecosystem as well. And all of those resources that we give them, money for the company, salary for them, healthcare, believe it or not, that's very important here in the US, giving them healthcare and giving them dental and vision, which they wouldn't get otherwise. So through all of that, letting them fly. And the interesting thing is, we focus on training the entrepreneur, right? Our positive outcome is to have the right training for the entrepreneur. The outcome is not building a company. The outcome is not, establishing a corporation. The outcome is focusing on giving the entrepreneur the training that they need. And turns out that by doing that, a couple of really interesting things happen. And to me, they were unexpected, but this is kind of the beautiful thing about running this type of experiment. The first thing that was unexpected to me is that by doing that, by giving the right training, the right mentoring, and focusing on them and pushing them and selecting the right ones, right? Because not all PhDs are great entrepreneurs, but you select the ones with the right personality. we could have better odds at building successful companies. And as of today, that Runway program within those postdocs, we have built 47 companies. And of those 47%, 80% of them are either still operating profitably or have VC money to operate for 2 years or have been acquired. 80%, that's a staggering number, because usually you would expect it to be less than 10%, particularly in the scientific field. But it means that there's something to be said about training scientists the right way, and there's a capacity for them to build and do very interesting things and become better entrepreneurs. So that was the first unexpected, very positive thing that we figure out. The second interesting thing was that they really like to create new intellectual property. And when you take a look at a lot of incubation programs, they don't really focus on intellectual property or IP creation. In this program alone, we have filed for 71 patents. So these entrepreneurs really like to protect their IP because we focus on them. We tell them, you need to do what you need to do so that you can build that company. We actually give them a license that is very favorable to them, has no royalties, no minimum payments, it's exclusive, perpetual, transferable. What the Jacobs Institute, which is the one that manages that, gets is equity. We're full in on equity, which is where the part where you get the upside. So we get equity. We don't ask for minimum payments or royalties. And what that makes them is very focused on protecting what they have. And that's a statement that, again, a surprising positive outcome was that they built a lot of intellectual property, which the university cares about. And it's very important for the university to continue to grow that side. And also publications. Our postdocs have written more than 30 publications in peer-reviewed journals, and they acknowledge the role of the university, and they continue to spread their knowledge, and that's also very important for the university. So the outcomes were not really creating a company, even though obviously we have creating companies, and those companies have created jobs, and those companies are valued at over $1 billion. But it's the fact that in addition to having that economic impact, we've been able to have intellectual property creation, which is important for the university, great academic output, which is research, is part of this novel research. That's very important. And at the end, it also fulfills the mission of being an academic institution, giving training and resources. If they do not succeed as an entrepreneur, that's fine. They can go and do something else. We haven't had many of those. We only had one coming back to academia. So I wouldn't tell you what it's like to just come back to academia yet. I only have one. I don't have a lot of statistics, but that's a testament to how interesting it is right now to build something that even though we thought it's really outside of the scope of the university, the reality is that's very much in the scope of what the university wants to do and care about, which is better research, better intellectual property output, and obviously better training. And that's kind of the basics of the program.
Thank you very much, Fernando. You already gave us lots of insights, and I think what you described really lies at the essence of what the EECOLE initiative is about, and this is why we are so interested in the initiatives you just shared with us. We already discussed how your programs are very tight, to the New York ecosystems, but as you know, most of us in the room today, we are not based in New York or even in the US. So what kind of advice do you have for us? Working across different countries in different ecosystems, what best practices you could share? You already probably hinted upon it, but what could you share with us that could maybe be replicated elsewhere outside New York?
Yeah, so it's very easy to see now why is it obvious to build something like this in New York, right? New York is now a very interesting and very wealthy venture ecosystem and an entrepreneurship ecosystem. But for everybody, realize that 10 years ago, it wasn't so. It wasn't obvious at all that this needed to be in New York. This should have been made in Silicon Valley. This should have been made in Israel. So don't think that because there is not an ecosystem right now where you stand, there cannot be an ecosystem. I think that's the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is you have to build this from the beginning with the intent and the involvement of every single actor in your community. So it could be the VC community, the industry, the academic, and the city where you're at, or the state where you're at. I often joke about that I have way too many bosses, because my boss is the economic development corporation of the city. My boss is the university. My boss is the tech transfer office. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that I have many different bosses, because it just brings everybody together and everybody wants to go down the same route. So start building from that point of view, where you should, I don't know if report, but basically bring everybody in from the beginning, and see what is it that they want to do. And the last one, and might be just more obvious right now, is these venture ecosystems, these very rich venture ecosystems, which New York is now is growing very fast. But of course, Silicon Valley and the Startup Nation, they are very accessible to other places in the world. I am sitting here now after traveling for 2 weeks to South America, to Armenia. I've gotten people here that come from Chile, from Mexico, from all of the Baltic states, from the Nordics. So everybody wants to connect with different ecosystems. And one thing that was positive about the pandemic was that it really opened up the idea that great innovation comes from anywhere, and we can be connected anywhere in the world. So again, don't feel that because you're not here, you couldn't connect to an ecosystem that is rich. Yeah, you do need to be connected to an ecosystem that has funding and has a lot of resources. But there's a lot of great work that can be done outside of that ecosystem building, and then at the right time, come and connect to that ecosystem. And mentoring is across the globe. That's one thing that we've also realized. Mentoring can be done from anywhere. We have great mentors in Europe. From the beginning, we've been working with mentors in Israel. And of course, we bring them when we can, but a lot of what we do is remote. So take advantage of that opportunity of connecting.
Thank you, Fernando. I see that there are questions already coming in, so perhaps we can move on with the Q&A segment. Maria, over to you.
Thank you very much, Fernando. Very interesting, and hello, everyone. So indeed, we have questions. Could you please list 3 of the most biggest hurdles that you experienced in this process of creating this program, and how did you address these challenges?
Yeah.
Did you manage to anticipate these, or were they a surprise? Thank you.
I didn't think I would anticipate them, but in retrospect, they were no surprise at all. First hurdle is always bringing great people, right? Finding amazing candidates, finding these amazing PhDs, because we look all over the world. But it's a different way of looking at a PhD. It's a different way of looking at a university. Therefore, I think that a lot of people don't really understand that it's possible. No, I've gotten a lot of PhDs that are confused about, why is it that that this program exists? I don't get it. So building a pipeline was a challenge outside of just Cornell and the Technion, and making sure that we had the right people with the right mindset always applying and understanding how to build that. So it took just a lot of personal effort, traveling, talking to people in great universities, connecting with them. And yes, I for the first 2 years, I think I traveled everywhere trying to find people. So pipeline is definitely a challenge if you want to bring the greatest minds out there, right? And being disciplined with always bringing great talent. And even if you have the funding, then, bringing that great talent. The second one is funding. It's an expensive program. And we had the opportunity, I think this is one of the other questions. We started with an endowed gift from the Jacobs family, the founders of Qualcomm. Also about $130 million that they gave both Cornell and the Technion to build this Jacobs Institute. We worked with it as an endowed gift. So every year I took about $1.5 million of that to fund these entrepreneurs, these postdocs, and each postdoc costs us about $150,000 per year. We used to do 5 a year. so that meant that there was not enough funding for operations, and this really requires not just the director, but it requires more people that are part of the community, part of building partnerships, part of administrative stuff. So it's a program that requires some overhead. I don't think a lot of overhead, but some overhead. So the challenge of funding was, how do we add to that initial gift that we had so that we can continue to operate and we can continue to grow things? And there have been steps for that. So the first thing that I did was build a program called Friends of Runway, where we brought in, it's like an executive club of really interesting friends that give us more funding. With that, we're able to raise more than $1 million every year. Then we have some special gifts that we have received from people close to our network. Sometimes we received a special gift from the Carson Foundation on health technologies to support entrepreneurs working on digital health. We received a couple of other special gifts. And now as we continue to go down the funding stack, we're focusing on corporate funding and federal funding. So those are the two things. So that's a constant challenge, the funding part. So the first one is supply of people. The second one is funding. And the third one, and maybe this is the unsung hero of this program, is making it work with the university. And I've seen many programs that are incubators, venture funds. The Engine is a great example of this. It's a venture fund. It is not a program that works well with the university. Universities don't know how to handle programs like this. And venture funds, they don't know how to, because that's not their business. The business of a university is not to be a VC with LPs and get a bunch of money. It's nice, but that's not the business of the university. So there was a lot of work that I did behind the scenes, making sure that everything that we did worked out well with the finance department of the university, with the auditing requirements for the university. Yes, I do get audited, even though no, it's not really something that we agreed upon at the beginning, but I get audited. I comply with the conflict of interest office of the university. I make sure that we work with the technology licensing and transfer office of the university that report to them. So there's a lot of background bureaucracy that the university understands and uses. And if you blend it the right way and make it work with that bureaucracy of the university, then it becomes a program not only that is known, that is understood, but it's a program that university can kill because it gives it a lot of good output. So I think that third one is difficult to explain, but also absolutely necessary. You cannot build it as a separate effort. You need to, from the beginning, really start to tie it down. And the drawback of that is that probably the program doesn't grow as fast as I would like it to grow, right? Because it requires all of that bureaucracy in the bottom. But that's a trade-off that you need to do so that future-wise, the program is basically solid proof and ironclad in working with the university and serves the university as it should.
Thank you, Fernando. I see that you also answered other questions in the chat. So thank you for that. I think I'm going to bundle a few questions. Can you give a little bit more of information in terms of the mentor selection? And what would you say are the pillars of the right training for entrepreneurs? Thank you.
Yeah. So on mentor selection, what I've come to learn is less important to select the perfect mentor. I don't think that there's a perfect mentor, and it's very difficult to understand matching of personalities. So what we try to do is give as many mentors as possible for many different fields and make sure that our entrepreneurs kind of rotate and get to see them and understand them. And at some point in time, they decide what makes a great connection. Also throughout the life of the entrepreneur, particularly in the early years, they require many different types of mentors and they change all the time. Oh, I had a challenge with funding. Now I have a challenge with team building. Now I have a challenge with growth. So they start changing all the time. So what we do is we find people that, I think one of the things that we do like about mentors, we try to find people that have lived entrepreneurship. And living entrepreneurship, meaning that have been entrepreneurs, doesn't mean that they build only startups. You can be a great entrepreneur being in a university building new things. So you can be a great academic or intrapreneur. But we find people that have done that, have kind of lived that path. So they have empathy for what these entrepreneurs are living. And then we try to maximize the amount of knowledge that we have in many different places. So it could be finance, it could be human resources, it could be decision-making, it could be training, it could be selling themselves. So there are many different things that they need, and just rotate as much as possible. We are very lucky that we have a big set of mentors that come from Ithaca, from Cornell and Ithaca, and from all over New York State. Of course, the set of mentors that we have at the Technion and in other places, also in Israel, and we just always try to expand, and of course keep the quality, right? So we always want people that have had those great experiences, but at the same time, I would say great mentors. There's all of those set of mentors, and then there is the alumni of the program, which are fantastic mentors too, and those come and help new companies. So that's how we select mentors.
Thank you. And the other question was more on what do you think are the pillars to provide right trainings for entrepreneurs? So a little bit more about the training aspect of this program.
Yes. So I'll give you just a couple of trainings that I think that are absolutely necessary if you want to build an entrepreneur. Of course, you can give as many trainings as you can, or we should. But first off, customer discovery. And now this has been tried and true. I think that all of us use the Steve Blank methodology. And here in the US, EECOLE basically is a national training program. So use EECOLE. It is absolutely relevant still and very important for these entrepreneurs to go out there and talk to customers. Stop coding, get out there, talk to people. So that's the first one, very important for that. The second one is decision making, because they don't understand how to make decisions fast. And as an entrepreneur, remember that they're scientists. They had time to make decisions. They had years to analyze, but right now they don't. They have 2 years, and maybe they only have 1 year to really build what they need to build. So there's a lot of training that we do, and there's a methodology called area method that we use here to teach them how to make decisions, but really help them with decision making. Just yesterday, I was talking to an entrepreneur that said, well, I like this mentor, but she doesn't help me make decisions fast. And so that's what I need, right? To make decisions fast. Decision making is very, very important. The third one is selling themselves, which is changing the language of the way that they talk about what they're building. And as you know, being scientists and being a scientist myself, I had the same fault, is we tend to revert to talking science and engineering, when in reality, we should be talking more about the value and what is it that we're building at the end of the day. And so changing that vocabulary that they use and really have them explain what they're doing in a way that VCs can understand it, the people that use it can understand it. That's also very important. It's a change of language, and we call it becoming irresistible, which is a training that we built here with a very interesting entrepreneur, and it's just giving them a different mindset on that. And the last one that I would say that is important, I would say those 4, even though there's more, of course, but the other one is team building. Also remember that if you're a scientist, probably you've been working in a lab like I did in front of a hoodie for many years without really building a team, without really talking to anyone. In our PhDs, we are trained to be independent. We're not trained to build a team. And building a team is extremely important. It starts with getting a co-founder, which we push them to do a lot. Some of them are very reluctant to do it, very reluctant, because they never done it before. And they feel that they're self-sufficient. And we fight with that a lot. But we need to teach them how to build better teams. So team building, selling themselves or changing that vocabulary, decision-making, and getting out there and talking to customers. Those are the 4 pillars. If you do those 4 and you do them well, you're 90% of the way there.
Thank you, Fernando. Very interesting. It's notably this change in vocabulary that needs to happen.
Yep.
One question also regarding the impact of the program. How many students that enter this program are running their business afterwards? Perhaps you mentioned a few numbers at the beginning, but just to clarify, are all of them, what is the proportion of students? And the second question would be, you said that some of them go back to academia, but do some of them also go to the industry, for instance?
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
only one has gone back to academia
Okay.
of all of those. Right now, Runway is now an umbrella, because after we build that postdoctoral program, it worked out so well that I had another population of people that were just finishing their master's programs at Cornell, and they didn't have that training, they didn't have those resources. So I said, come in and also join this training, because Runway is going to give you that great training. So right now I have one umbrella, but two sets of people. One, these are postdocs, entrepreneurs, and then the other ones are people that just graduated from their masters at Cornell Tech, and they're also building companies. So within, the 80% of them on the postdoctoral side and 60% of them on the master's side are still either running their companies profitably or continue to grow, with venture money, or are being sold, or have companies that have been sold. So after that, what happens from the companies that have been sold? They go and they work for the company. There is a little bit of service that they have to do in that company, vesting, right? We just had that with a company that we sold to Synopsys. And after that vesting, right now we have one that continues to work with the company, that he likes it, but we have some other ones that left now to build their second company. So they just continue to be entrepreneurs, and they try a second time, right? Second time founders, and probably they'll be third time and fourth time founders. They continue to do that. We had some that did not succeed in building a company, and they went to industry, and they're just happy, working either as CTOs or as very important part of the executive team in companies. And they're just better trained for it. They understand what that means. So that's great. And only one that went back to academia because he really loved research and academia and teaching, but he's still involved in entrepreneurship. So let's see how that plays out. But the beautiful thing about this is, whatever the outcome is, we just train them to be okay with any outcome. We're not training them so they can only be entrepreneurs. We are helping them understand what this entrepreneurship path is, and then they decide what it is. But I think that we have a new generation of scientists that see entrepreneurship as a career, and once they live it, they either get addicted to it because it's addictive, or they just become much better professionals when they work with companies and they become leaders of product within larger companies.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. So perhaps one last question is more in terms of targeting. Did you design the program with specific areas in mind, such as medical, food, health, technologies, startups? Thank you.
Yeah, we did not. We were generalists, and we just said, hey, anything that comes, let's do it. But what happens, and I think you'll see this, is you end up attracting people that are solving problems very much related to your ecosystem. So 40% of our portfolio ends up being health related, life sciences, digital health. And that's because that's a huge topic in New York City. So we have things on fintech, on urban tech, on communications, on transportation. These are all things that are very much related to New York. So I think that happens if you make it agnostic in industry, you'll end up just being really close to the industries that you where you live. Which are, healthcare in New York is a big topic. And what happens if you have that base, you're always going to have health, prop tech, so like urban tech, and all of those, cybersecurity is very important too. So all of those industries that are very, let's say, important in New York. And then you have themes that happen every year. So at some point in time, it was, I think right now it's generative AI. Last year was blockchain. And then before that was NFTs. And then before that was big data. And before that was IoT. So you start seeing these peaks in topics. But you'll have that distribution be kind of normalized. And then you have to decide, do you delve in and kind of double down on that area? Like healthcare, and we ended up just finding more funding for it and just saying let's do it, or you try to say no to it. I think you should just put more effort into it if you see it growth.
Okay, thank you very much for answering to all of the questions. I think we can start wrapping up now.
Mm-hmm.
I leave the floor to Rafael and Julia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Fernando, was a super dense webinar, and we have plenty of notes. Sorry to hear that you have a lot of bosses, but it means that you are perfectly connected to your ecosystem, as you said. Thank you very much. It was super informative, super effective. I wish I could be young again and apply for the Cornell Tech program. But we will go deeper in the mindset of individuals with the next webinar with Gabi Kafka, and there is an Eastern egg that is Norris Kruger that will also be involved in that discussion. So we'll try again to go deeper in the mindset. Thank you very much. We're able to save a few minutes of your life today. I don't know if Julia wants also to say something, and thanks to all of you for participating in this discussion and for
just
the question.
quickly, because I can see that the chat is very active, so people still want to continue the discussion. But anyway, thank you everybody, and yeah, please be back next week. We look forward to continuing our conversation. Thank you very much to all participants, and Fernando, of course, for your time.
Thank you all.
See you soon, Fernando. Thank you very much.